Hello, my name is Travis Newbill with Shambhala Mountain Center, and I'm happy to be joined today by Nashalla Nyinda, who's going to be coming to Shambhala Mountain Center to lead a retreat called Green Tara, Enlightened Feminine Wisdom in Action, and that's taking place February 28th through March the 1st. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Nashalla, she is a fully trained doctor of Tibetan medicine, and she teaches Tibetan medicine and Buddhism worldwide, including as an adjunct professor at Naropa University. She is a student of the Venerable Drongguru Rinpoche, and along with her husband, Dr. Sundu S. Nyinda, operates the Tibetan Medicine and Holistic Healing Clinic in Boulder, Colorado. So Nashalla, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
So I thought it would be interesting if you could just unpack these parts of the title. So to begin with, I will circle back around and talk about Green Tara practice, but what does this aspect, enlightened feminine wisdom, refer to?
So to understand this question really requires us to understand that within the Tibetan iconographical kind of representation of dualism, we have a male principle, which is primarily considered to be action, and you have a female principle, which is considered to be wisdom. So it's actually that we all possess this male and female principle within us. This is not due to our own gender, but in fact is about creating this non-dual awakened sense of this wisdom and action together. So the enlightened feminine wisdom is really a sort of direct experience of one's Buddha nature, but it also has a huge relationship with a connection to like the feminine intuition, like the feminine response to things, which tends to be a very sort of immediate practical response. So particularly within like the Green Tara practice, she's right there. Her foot is extended down. She's not totally 100% in a posture up on a throne, but she's got a foot extended down into the lower realms, ready to like just leap in and like sort of at a moment's notice. So there's practicality to the feminine power that's in the real world, like every day trudging on. And if you can like sort of elegantly tap into the wisdom of those ordinary moments, that actually helps lead towards a more enlightened state.
Okay, and that seems to be getting at that part of the title, wisdom in action, not just sort of wisdom or intellectual understanding somewhere in a monastery, but put into action. And so those two qualities together relate to Green Tara. Could you say something specifically, just what wisdom in action, how that might look and contrast to
well, like for example, like we look at all of the deities and you could say that all the deities are the same. Like they all have Buddha nature. They're all fully awakened beings, but each have their own characteristics. So for example, we work with the Chenrezig practice when we need to increase our patience. We work with the medicine Buddha practice when we want to increase our healing powers. So we work with Green Tara specifically when we to have a fearlessness. There's this that she contains in her swift action, that she is going to roam the whole earth, the under earth. She's going to touch all the beings. And when you call on her, she's going to instantly come. So like, for example, if we're like praying, we're trying to develop our general wisdom, like in the wisdom that is seen and sort of attached to Manjushri as a deity practice. This is a different kind of wisdom because that's an inner development of your own wisdom, whereas hers is like a swift response, like meeting something with the actual antidote to it, because we have an action and then a reaction. And so in this sense, that her reaction is associated with wisdom, and it helps alleviate all the types of fears that we have. And she's also considered very protective. So she's a deity that people would call on in practical situations, like there's a flood coming, I'm traveling across, Tibet, and I'm worried about robbers. So she has this sense of non-dual nature of action and wisdom together. And so it moves at a really rapid pace. So from a personal point of view, I can always give the example of when I was giving birth to my first child. I was having a very difficult birth, and ended up in an emergency C-section. And as I'm a Tibetan doctor. Of course, I was praying to Medicine Buddha. But when I knew the baby was in trouble, and then I knew I started hemorrhaging, I prayed to Tara. I called to her because I wanted her to show up immediately and help. And so it was like that swift type of swooping in and getting things done in a really practical level that's associated with females. If you think about moms and how they kind of know what's going on at all times, and they can just swoop in and sort of take care of their children, it's like that kind of action. So it's also like an understanding of, if you look at her in her stance, I mentioned that her foot is like heading down into the lower realm, so she's ready to leap into action, but she's actually holding in her hand this mudra. It's the same mudra that you see with Medicine Buddha. It's the mudra of generosity. So she's giving relief and comfort to people who are afraid or have fears, or they need some sort of inner strength and power and fortitude. So she's like offering that like a dutsi or a nectar. So sometimes people can even like imagine her like coming down and handing you what you need on a real practical level. Like you need food, you need shelter. She's very practical. And then on her other hand, she's giving the teaching mudra. So she's also teaching you about embracing your own non-dual nature at the same time. So she's sort of giving and teaching simultaneously. And that's a particularly special aspect about her.
Hmm. And for people who may not be familiar with visualization practice and how learning a practice like Green Tara translates into benefiting your life off the meditation cushion, what would you say to that?
I think it's the same in any practice, truly, that when we work with ourselves on the cushion, that what that's doing is it's actually cleansing our internal channels, because we have 84,000 different channels in our body. And so when we're embodying the quality of a deity with a generation and completion stage practice where we're visualizing, you can do it that way. But there's actually 3 sort of bodies. You have the physical form where you're doing a generation stage practice and they're in front of you. And likewise, you can also have a sort of mantra body, because that's a sound healing. So man means mind and tra means to protect. So this is something that people can like drive in their car, and maybe they're having an anxiety moment about what they're going to have in the meeting or so on. So they can call on this mantra body, and that can help them outside the cushion. And then we also have the mandala. So you can also visualize yourself actually going to her realm, receiving teachings from her, and then sort of making this connection. Because the more that you have a connection to the lineage, and the more you have a connection to a deity, the closer they will come and bring greater comfort to you in everyday ordinary moments. And so it's a practice of cultivating when we're on the cushion, so that you can connect immediately offside the cushion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. And it looks like, yeah, to come up and immerse in a weekend retreat like that, like you're going to be offering, is a good opportunity to develop all three aspects of this
Mm-hmm.
practice and relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really important that people understand that you're not making up this connection when you're doing a visualization practice. It's that these wisdom beings are already there and available for us, and especially Tara. She's just ready to assist, like for people who have practical needs. And it's about generating the connection to that particular practice so that you can embody your own feminine wisdom so that that rises up off. Choosing, typically we would be angry, or to not shut down where we might typically shut down. That's also entering our wisdom. And that comes from doing the practice.
Thank you. Yeah, that's so helpful. Um, well, is there anything else about the retreat at Shambhala Mountain Center that you may like uh, to say?
You know, I teach quite a bit up at SMC, and I really enjoy the container. There's something very special about being able to come together as a community and sort of create a container where you can actually be free to sort of unpack all of the things that you need to work with things, and get some individual instruction and get some questions answered, and then practical time to actually learn how to do the practice. There is one thing that I should say, which is that within this particular tradition, when one is doing the practice actively, not 100% of the time, because people are like, well, I don't want to do that. But when doing this practice, because it comes from the Kriya tradition, typically you don't consume meat and onions and garlic during this practice. And that's because it's connected to like a purity. And again, that's kind of purifying your inner channels. So this does not mean that you don't need to be vegetarian all the time. For example, if I know I'm going to do green Tara practice on a green Tara day, and green Tara happens to share the day, so I kind of have to choose. But I will typically not eat eggs or any kind of animal products that the practice. And then you can go about and you can eat it later in the day if you need to. But during this weekend, since we're going to be focused on the practice, I've requested that everyone remain for the weekend. So just know that they serve great food there. So I don't think anyone will be hungry. But about that, like, why is that? And it's because it's related to the channels and body.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a helpful note, and I know that yeah, that's listed on the web page for the program as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, just to yeah, extend the invitation out to anybody who's interested. You can learn all about the program, and you can read Nashalla's full bio just below where this video is placed. Yeah, you go to shamalamountain.org, and you can find Green Tara, Enlightened Feminine Wisdom in Action. And that's again going to be February 28th through March 1st, and led by Nashalla Nyinda, who yeah, is sure just teaching this with all of the understanding of Tibetan medicine that you bring. Just hearing you talk about the practice and the channels and how sophisticated all that is. Yeah, it's really something. So thanks again for joining us, and look forward to seeing you soon.